You can
Just
pull
fist the
you
whole
can fist
thing.
the whole tube to get the right amount out. I never thought I'd say this on on podcast, but just fist the tube. All right, welcome back to the Chemist Confessions podcast. I'm Gloria,
I'm Victoria.
and this is a human conversation on all the skincare science we talk about on the daily. And today we are talking about lip SPF.
Jose.
So for those of you who follow us on Instagram, you might have seen a story or two pop up here and there talking about how we're doing a bunch of tests on lip SPF products. We polled you guys on how you feel about it. A lot of you are like, they suck. And we will say we kind of agree, but we'll get into that later. We're going to start off with some lip biology, why you should even care about having SPF in your lip products. And then we're going to take a break and dive into all the products we test.
Yeah. I have to say, I feel like lip SPF is something that gets forgotten despite the fact that sun care has been like all the craze lately. After testing some of these products, I get why that it's been forgotten. But at the same time, as we go through the science, I feel like hopefully this will give people a lot of incentive to maybe give it a second chance. Yeah.
I'm just going to throw it out there that as chemists, Victoria and I have both worked on sunscreen projects for face, for body, but I've never personally worked on lip SPF project. I can tell you that face and body is complicated as is, and throwing lip on top of it, I was like, ooh, I don't envy those chemists.
Yeah, I definitely say as we go through some of these, things we picked up while testing, would hate to have one of these projects because it just comes with a level of taste that you probably endure for many, many months. So, yeah.
Exactly.
All right, let's do it.
Let's dive right into it. Let's get into the biology of lip and why you should care about giving it some tender loving care. To start, the lip skin is very, very different than your skin everywhere else. One of the biggest differences that you might have heard of already is that lip is a lot thinner than other parts of skin. We're going to put a little diagram up on the screen. Stratum corneum is the outermost layer of your skin. These are flattened, dead sheets of skin that when you chemically exfoliate, they're taking some of that layer off. That layer does need to exist. I'm not saying that the whole thing is bad. It is a very important part of your lipid matrix, your protection from pathogens and water loss and everything else. But lip gets a wee little bit layer of the stratum corneum. Statistically speaking, the difference is normal skin gets about 16 layers or so of the stratum corneum, whereas the lip only gets 5 layers. So it is a pretty significant difference.
It really feels like it's bald.
Yeah, I'm someone, and I'll talk about this more when we talk about products. I'm someone who gets like kind of peely lips pretty easily when I don't agree with a product. It always amazes me. I'm like, I'm peeling off the only layers I have. and yeah.
For sure.
The other big difference is that lip skin doesn't come with all the other structure stuff that you find elsewhere. Like, there's no hair follicles there. Hopefully not. There's also the more important thing is to know is that there's no sweat glands. Actually, we shouldn't say that there's zero, but it's very sparse. You may get a couple here and there. We should note that there are sweat glands around in skin around the lip, but that amount of sebum that is excreted by those glands is definitely not enough to cover your lip area. It does offer some level of protection, but this is also why your lips are perpetually a little dry and needs a little heavier duty help than the rest of your skin.
Yeah, and I just for those that need a bit of a refresher on sebum, most people know sebum for acne reasons and oily skin people, but sebum actually does provide a level of actually antioxidant and preventative care. It can act as a bit of a protective film for skin. So if you're wondering why emphasize this and how the fact that lip skin doesn't have this ability, just to emphasize the need for some extra help here.
Yeah. Last but not least, the third big difference between lip skin and the rest of your skin is melanin. Melanin is produced by cells called melanocytes, and these are essentially pigment in skin. We should mention that there's some lingo out there that suggests that skin in your lip area have no melanocytes. That is not true, but it is very little. We're talking about when you compare to regular skin cells, keratinocytes. In lip, the ratio is like a 10 or 15 to 1 in favor of keratinocytes, whereas in regular skin, the ratio is 4 to 1. So almost a 4x fold in terms of just the sheer volume of melanocytes. And this is very important because your pigment does contribute, is part of skin's natural defense system against UV. And that's part of the reason why you tan, melanocytes reacting to the sun and whatnot. So your skin is definitely even weaker than the rest of your skin against sun.
All that biology to say, you probably feel like lips suddenly feel very exposed, but hopefully like people who feel like, oh, I feel the need, like my lips tend to be drier than my skin or needs more care, like this helps explain why that happens. And obviously lips go through a lot of environmental exposure. You're eating, you're bracing the elements, you might have a job where you talk a lot, all of these things will factor into general lip care. So let's also take a second to talk about lip aging. It's actually kind of fascinating. Lip vermilion is actually what they call the general pigmentation in skin. And it actually happens to be a really big focus in general facial aging. It's actually influenced by a lot of different factors. Many factors you already know, chronological aging over time, general hormonal deficiency, eek for women, I know we feel this, and then photo aging, as well as environmental factors. And all of these will attribute to the lip's general change in morphology, the color, the general color composition, as well as the physiological shape of the lip and the general displacement of lip color within the lip. So you're just think of all the lipstick ads and how they try to emphasize fullness, brightness of lip color, the shape. So all of those attributes is unfortunately gets impacted with aging.
I was gonna add that I think unfortunately there's not, because lip aging is so complex and a lot of it has to do with the morphology, the shape, and the structure around lip. There's not a ton to do topically speaking, except to protect it from the elements. That's the best we can do for lip.
Yeah. And this is why, smokers actually are typically use their lip shape is kind of like, and lip aging is kind of what's used as examples, because smokers, they tend to get these like vertical lines within the lip area. And on top of that, you see the general change in color, you see the general thinness of lips that tends to happen. And so just one of the examples of accelerated aging, what that looks like if you're trying to imagine what general skin concerns are out there for lip care. Gloria found a neat lip stat for hydration, and I'll just generally read the quote here. It says, in terms of physiological parameters, with increasing age, there is an increase in lip hydration and a decrease in tool. A study showed that tool values for the lip had declined until approximately 30 years of age. Younger individuals experience more issues with lip dryness than older ones. Concerning lip color, lightness, and redness tend to decrease with age. So although, the general aesthetics of lips tend to decline, hydration seems to increase. So that's a kind of an interesting stat there.
I kind of did a double take. I was like, do I believe that? Well, as someone with dry skin and drier lips, I hope it's true. So I'll report back with findings in a few years. But yeah, no, not all bad news there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say that when I read this, I had a really cynical thought, and I was like, well, I guess if you think about the structure of lips as it tends to shrink, the hydration is better retained. And I was like, I know that's like a dark thought, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, at least like hydration is not lost, because we know, at least for skin, that's a big factor.
That's kind of funny. Just a visual of someone just like slowly puckering lips, but it's smaller, but it's dewier.
Yeah.
Yeah, so because lip is a complex subject, and honestly, other than hydration, there's not a lot other things you can do for it topically. That's why we decided to focus on lip SPF. It's a big category, but still, lots of people don't have a lip SPF that they enjoy using, or know that they should have a lip SPF ready to go either. And kind of just to highlight the importance of having that in your life, I actually found this really old paper in a very unexpected place. This is a blip from the Military Medicine Journal. The reason why they had this piece is because they're noticing higher incidences of skin cancer when vets are coming back from, say, Korea deployment. And there is a direct correlation between people who are serving outdoors versus more indoor and underground duties. And I'm just gonna read a few stats. In this paper, they cited that the ear was most often affected, followed closely by cheek and then lower lip. Find it kind of interesting the upper lip is slightly less affected. Of the men screened, approximately 25% were light complexion with blonde or red hair. All lip lesions were found in blonde or red hair men who have outdoor duty. Squamous cell carcinoma was diagnosed in a 22 and 27-year-old in their study. All lip lesions were found in blonde or red hair men who had outdoor duty. And then they also mentioned that all the incidence of pre-malignant lip lesions in Korean returnees was 1%, which is kind of high.
That
It's
is high.
actually a lot
That's very
higher than I
high.
was expecting. If you think about 1 in 100, of course, being deployed, the environment was a lot harsher. The exposure time, everything else is longer, more persistent than a lot of
Mm.
our regular day activity. But this just really highlights what that does to your skin over time.
For those of you wondering, this article came out in the 70s. So that's the general awareness around lip care when that started. So yeah, I think that's fascinating. And also just want to point out that, they do talk about these lip lesions being found in lighter skin types. Like they mentioned blonde and red-haired men. They hadn't really talked about Fitzpatrick scales yet. Ultimately, this is just an emphasis in that we all need some attention to lip care and lip SPF here.
Yep. So hopefully that paints a picture of why we're doing this episode. We're going to take a really quick break and we're going to come back with our thoughts on the gazillion products we tested.
Speaking of lip care, did you know that we have our own lip product? It's also a hand, body, elbow, knee, face, essentially dry patch savior. Balm Voyage is our 1% ceramide balm blended in a petrolatum base with soothing frankincense extract.
This barrier helper can be used to prevent and protect against stubborn dry patches without the grease or shine of your typical balms. Keep this handy for whenever your skin decides to fuss, which is all the time for me right now. If you're interested to try it out, for new customers, please use the code CCPodcast2024 for 15% off your order. And for returning customers, you can use the code PodcastShip2024 for free shipping off your next purchase. All right, guys, we tested a lot of these products, and I have to say, my lips have been peeling nonstop. So, yeah, let's talk about these.
Yeah, so we'll let you guys know essentially what we did. Basically, we tested probably 11 to 12 lip products of different types. We have mineral, chemical, hybrid. We actually have different formats. We have tinted, gloss, and even sticks. The idea here is that, well, we've actually done this study before, maybe a couple years now, where we looked at the existing offering and we really liked the Jack Black formula. That's a non-tinted, kind of like a softer balm for lips. But we realized, this category has really expanded also because makeup has really gained back its popularity post-COVID. So there's a lot more SPF lip products out there. Are the formulas any better? We have some thoughts. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start in the mineral category.
Yeah, so this year we tested 4, I will say, very different formulas in the mineral category that basically have nothing in common. We'll say a lot of the new mineral balms are now tinted, which I think is a good thing because my God, some of the older ones we tested, it's just like it's like the face counterparts. It's white, it's chalky. The whiteness gets in your lip lines. It is not a good look.
It's very unflattering.
Yeah, like, do you have dry lips? Well, now you do, or at least you look like you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in this category this year, we tested one that's non-tinted, and that's a Blue Lizard SPF 15, which everything, and this one is also our cheapest entry at $4. Everything else is tinted. We have some Boss Gloss, and that's our kind of drugstore entry. We also have In Beauty Sun Balm, and last but not least, we have Supergoop's tinted lip shade. And yeah, Victoria, what are your early thoughts on these products?
Okay. So this is a bit of a reveal going into chemical, but I appreciate that I don't taste these as much as
Yeah,
chemical.
true.
So I would say that's the benefit in this category. But I will say, in terms of formula, this probably has to be the Wild Wild West. We'll start with Blue Lizard. And I think just general stick formulas need a little bit of I guess a little bit of tweaking, because sometimes what happens is the stick formula is so hard of a balm, of a stick, that it just doesn't spread super well. You can feel
Oh,
like it's like,
I'm trying to
yeah,
do it on the screen, but it's hard to tell. But it's just like a little. It's when you apply, you can just feel that it's uneven or it drags a little bit.
yeah, it's very firm.
Hmm.
And so, knowing that you need to apply a lot of sunscreen, right, to get the coverage that you need, it just doesn't feel like I'm going to get that level of protection. I just have to kind of like do this motion, like like a scrubbing motion, to really get the coat that I'm looking for. So sorry, that's a really unflattering look. Just like rubbing my hand aggressively over my lips. But anyways, hopefully that, paints a picture of, my initial thoughts on Blue Lizard's mineral stick. Yeah.
I think to add to that, I will say this one has like some of the older school or the I shouldn't say old school, some of the earlier formulas with mineral. They tend to be very white, chalky, gets your
Hmm.
lip lines. But I will say this one didn't do that for me.
That's true. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is SPF 15 and it's rated as water resistant, which none of the other ones are, I believe.
Hmm.
So that's a big plus. And but other than that, it's also like Victoria said, application didn't make us feel super great about the formula. And on my skin, on my lips, it's definitely drying. And I'm just gonna throw this out there. That's a big thing with me, but I'm not
Hmm.
going to ding a lot of these products for drying, because we tested these so much in like quick, like one after another, and then rotate them back, finish our thoughts, and then try them again. My lips were just peeling all the time,
Yeah.
and at some point, it's hard to pinpoint one that's really causing the issue. But for me, it's like even though it didn't have the whiteness to it, when my lips are dry, that drag didn't make it feel very good to apply either.
Yeah. Totally. Speaking of drag, I was going to mention, I have to talk about In Beauty Sun Balm. So this is a balm that you can buy at Sephora. It's $24. And I would say that the actual direct comparison would be the drugstore's E.L.F. Sun Boss Gloss. So In Beauty Sun Balm is SPF 30. E.L.F. Sun Boss Gloss is an SPF 25. I was going to say that application too was not my favorite. The formula,
Hmm.
first off, you have to really squeeze the tube to get the product out.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
it is quite a workout. Yeah. And
Hold on. Sorry. I'm trying to do it on screen and I realized I have to like you can
just
full
fist the
you can
whole
fist
thing.
the whole tube to get the right amount out. Like, I never thought I'd say this on podcast, but just fist the tube. That's the right way to get the pot out. Because if you're trying to squeeze it with like
Yeah.
your two forefingers, like your typical tubes, it's
Yeah.
not coming out.
Yeah. So what that means is the formula is very thick. And so when you spread it, the spreadability of it is not as, it just doesn't glide or melt the same way that the e.l.f. Sunboss Gloss does. So I would say, this comparison, I prefer and would recommend the e.l.f.'s version, just for just the general level of use. And I thought the formulas were pretty similar, in terms of the tinted level. But I thought the e.l.f.'s formula was superior between the two.
Yeah, I will say, on a scale of lip products, I probably use less saturated lip colors
Mm,
more, especially post COVID. I think all my like really beautiful saturated deep lip colors is like shrinking sadly in there too because I
yeah.
haven't touched them in so long. So for me, these have definitely more than just a wash of color. Like
Mm,
it's fair. I wouldn't say it's like fairly pigmented for those of you who are really used to lipstick, but
yeah.
I think it's definitely pigmented enough for a more polished look.
I feel like that's the in between a subtle tint
Yeah.
and a
Mhm.
lipstick shade. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, agreed.
So that's that. Then the last product we tested in the mineral category is the Supergoop tinted lip shade. Actually, I'm wearing this on the podcast right now. This to me is the pigmentation level wise is a little bit lighter than the In Beauty and the E.L.F, but it's still it's still more it still gives you more of a lift than just like a very, very sheer tint. I will say Supergoop have a ton of different SPF lip products. We happen to pick this one up. But they also have other versions, non-tinted. It gets a little confusing, but this is the shade Lucky Me. For those of you curious.
I don't actually have a lot of feels. I thought it glided fine. It covered. This definitely wasn't as hard of a stick formula and firm as a
Mhm.
stick formula as the Blue Lizard. So yeah, I would say that if you are looking for a general lipstick shade that has a subtle tint, this is definitely can be considered for those looking for one.
Yeah, and I think the finish is very neutral. It's not
Mm,
super glossy. It's not
yeah,
matte. It's just kind of a really safe choice all around.
yeah.
For me, this feels better if I have like a little bit of another balm underneath.
Mm,
Just it's not drying, but it's not hydrating either. And I will say between the In Beauty and the Supergoop, which is these two are the same price point. I would pick the Supergoop just because the like Victoria already mentioned, the application, the thickness, it just felt the wear wasn't as comfortable for me over time.
totally. Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, before we move on to chemical, do you have a favorite in this category?
Yeah, I so you guys are gonna find out that I probably just am one that prefers gloss. I actually do
Mhm.
use a lot of lip glosses like that have SPF anyways. So I feel like I just end up gravitating towards those. And because of that, I feel like of these four, I would probably go with the e.l.f. lip gloss. Yeah.
Mhm. For me, I think I'm between the E.L.F. and the Supergoop.
Yeah.
I think E.L.F., if nothing else, it is a very easygoing balm. I mean, easygoing gloss. It's pigmented enough to cover most of the occasions,
Yeah.
I would think, and it's pretty comfortable on with wear. And the Supergoop to me is also a great option, but because it's pricier, I don't
Yeah.
know how I feel about reapplying it all the time and going through it very quickly.
So let's move on because we've got a few more. Let's move on to chemical because we also have some feels here. We'll just let you know right now. We tested 5 in this category of
Mhm.
different price points. The cheapest being a whopping $1.79 with Blistex SPF 15, all the
Mhm.
way to about $15, which is the K Skin Isles lip balm with an SPF of 30. Other than that, we also tested Aquaphor's SPF 30. We tested Sunbum's non-tinted SPF 30, as well as Hello Sunday's The One for Your Lips with an SPF of 50, which is our highest SPF lip product here.
Yeah. I'm just gonna come out and say real fast that this is a category where I really don't think you need to spend a ton of money. And
Mm.
taste is king because chemical filters have a taste where some of these do a much better job than others in terms of keeping it in check.
Yeah, I think if anything that drove my likes, dislikes, it definitely was taste.
Mhm.
I'm going to start with the one that just I could not stop tasting sunscreen here. And that unfortunately is the Hello Sunday, the one for your lips, the SPF 50. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the film former they're using. It just felt like it coated my mouth for a very long time and it stayed there. And no matter how much water I drank or what I ingested, like it's there for a few hours. So that was the one where I was like, despite the SPF 50, because there are not many in this category, so I understand the need to want more. It just was not for me.
Yeah, I had the same experience, and I think it's a very different and conflicting feeling than, say, your skin SPF product, where you want it to sit there forever and ever and
Yeah.
not have to worry about film integrity. But I think for me, the taste didn't make me feel very good about film integrity either, because it feels like it just
Yeah.
rubs off very easily, and you're just eating sunscreen all day long.
Yeah.
And it could be the filter level can contribute to that as
Mhm.
well. It's the only SPF 50. it could just be a little too much sunscreen for the lip. You just can't shake the taste with at this level. Um,
Yeah.
and for me, I have to give the other terrible taste award to the Sun Bum. Oh my god. I don't know what flavor y'all are using, but stop. It just it doesn't taste good. It's like sometimes when someone doesn't like after the gym, if you had a really good gym sesh, you smell pretty bad and you spurt something over you, but it's formulated in a way that doesn't quite agree with your body chemicals, so now you smell like Axe body spray and your sweat. That's what this product reminds me of. It's flavor and sunscreen.
It's so true. I could not agree more. Like, of the drugstore ones, Sunbun unfortunately is not my favorite. I think that, the glide is like not that great. The taste is not that there's a lot of things that unfortunately are just not great. Like, it's a very cheap formula, like price point affordable formula, but of the drugstore ones, this would not be like my recommendation to reach for. Also had the same issues and also have some feels about the tinted one, which is hybrid. So we'll talk about that in the next category. But I don't think you could have put that better, Gloria. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
a taste of not quite right.
Yeah, and I have to honestly, the flavor company, I don't even know how they achieve this because it's not when you put it on. If you guys decide to give this a try and you put it on, you notice the taste, and you're probably like, "Gloria's being too harsh. That taste it's not that strong. It's like not super crazy." You're right, it's not, but it's very present and it doesn't go away. So, and it's somehow has the ability to go over food. So I had
Mm,
tea that started tasting like sunscreen. I've had ramen started tasting like sunscreen. It's just like subtle, but you can't ignore it.
yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
as you guys can see, taste is a really big thing with chemical SPFs. And you
Yeah.
guys know us. We like chemical SPFs, but it's just in terms of lip, it's definitely a big challenge here. I will say there are a couple we liked. Like, for
Mhm.
example, I was, K-Skin Isle, their lip product is actually the most expensive, but I
Mhm.
actually really liked it. You do get an initial taste, but
Mhm.
I felt that it didn't linger. And I also felt that the film held up pretty well.
Mhm.
Wearability is pretty tough. It's very anecdotal because it depends on your lip morphology, your skin type. It also depends on what you eat, drink, and do throughout the day. So, definitely take what I say as more of a personal anecdote than something that has been truly measured. But I did find that I found it very minimally offensive. The color is very subtle. And then I felt the film, I didn't feel it kind of like melting into my mouth and like kind of just, kind of shifting all over my lips. So all those aspects I felt were good. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also tested the really, really, really boring products that is Blistex and
Mhm.
Aquaphor. Honestly, both great. They are very
Yeah.
basic, no frills.
Yeah.
They don't. They same as K skin. I think you can't get away from that initial taste because
Mhm.
it's just how chemicals filters taste.
Yeah.
Um, but neither of those lingered for me. Blistex kind of has a bonus of being a little minty. So
Mhm.
overall, like these two are great for everyday use. Because they're also very economical. Blistex being almost absurdly cheap. Like, you're not gonna be sad if you reapply over and over again.
Yeah.
I will say Aquaphor wore just a little bit better for me in the long run, and but honestly, both are pretty good.
Do you feel like, I think the thing I'm starting to figure out like why sticks, I feel a little hesitant about it now. I think it's just after all the sunscreens testing, I just don't know if I'm getting enough of a coat on my lips, Gloria. I was wondering, if you ever have that same hesitation sometimes when you're putting it on.
I actually think that was less of a factor for me because my lips are naturally so dry. So I'm someone that
Mm,
like when I apply lip balm, it's not lip balm, it's shoop 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 lip balm, and that's like
yeah.
kind of my natural tendency to begin with.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel that way about it, and actually, maybe in the back of my head, it did affect my scoring of some of these products. Is
Mm,
actually when that slip disappears, if it goes away too fast, I actually don't like that. I kind of like
yeah.
feeling something on my lips.
Totally. Totally agree.
Though I will say, I say that, but it it's so different. It's like we're for face and neck, we kind of talked about the 3 finger rule, 2 finger rule, whatever, trying to get enough product on your face. For lip, everyone's lip area is very different.
Mhm.
It's like it's just it. There is no good indication other than
Mm,
just keep coating.
yeah. Yeah, agreed. And then finally, we have a couple hybrids. These are both tinted. We have the Tatcha, the Kissu lip tint. It's an SPF 25. It is the most expensive of the products here at $34, which is
hmm
very expensive. And we have the Sun Bum tinted SPF. It's an SPF 15 and it comes in at $6. And I gotta be honest, Gloria, I don't have a ton of feels about this whole category.
I think I do really like the Tatcha formula.
hmm
I just don't. For me, the price point puts it in a really weird spot.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's a lip tint. It's an SPF lip tint, and SPF by nature is something that you should want to reapply all the time. But the price point make it seem absurd if you're just applying it every 30 minutes to an hour. And also, if I'm thinking about it as more of a luxury lip product, then I rather reach for makeup, like not necessarily
Yeah.
SPF product, but fancy lipstick. So to me,
Right.
that price point makes it a little awkward.
Yeah.
And I also don't think, even though it's a pretty good formula, it feels good, the color is nice. I don't know if it feels definitively better than the tinted minerals that we tested.
Yeah, I was exactly that. I was gonna say that, if I had to choose, I'd probably would rather reach for the Super Coupe lip tint instead. I find these two to be pretty comparable, even though they have different
Yeah.
filter systems. But I agree, it's like $34. I'd rather spend it on a beautiful, I don't know, Gucci lipstick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that money could go towards that. So it is tough. I agree. But the formula, we should mention it. It's a good formula. It melts well. It spreads well. It's not like a very firm stick formula that I keep complaining about. And then we have Sunbum, which, you know,
It's
I,
the same
I didn't
thing.
love
It's
it.
same shiznit, different packaging. Like, who supplies your flavor? It's so there. I don't even know how else to describe it. It's like you wear it, and the ghost of some balm lip balm I can taste for the rest of the day.
The ghost of Sunbum. The other thing too is like the formula spreads a little funky and it could be
Uh-huh.
because by the time I tested this, my lips are pretty not okay. They're a
Uh-huh.
bit dry. They've got a little bit of flaking. So it the spread is not melty, but it still like I get like chunks of like the pigment like scraped off on because my topography is not smooth anymore. It's like flaky. So it's like
Mhm.
it's just not the it just doesn't have the finesse of some of these other lip tints. It's also not that much cheaper. For example, it's only $6, but e.l.f.'s gloss is $7. So, I
Mm.
feel like in terms of price point, I think there are better ones. So we won't spend too much more time just like crapping on Sunbum's formulas, but that's our honest feels there.
Yeah, so let's tie this section up, and we're gonna take a break, then wrap up the episode with shopping tips on this category.
So to sum up, we tested 12 formulas. They're non-tinted, tinted, they're gloss and sticks. And ultimately, if you were to summarize some of the things that we really honed in on, it's taste, spreadability, dryness, which minor factor here, and then pigment, how much pigment some of these deposited onto the lips. We're going to get into some of these in greater detail in the final section where we talk about shopping tips for this category. But otherwise, let's take a break. It's time to do our animal fun fact corner.
Yeah. All right, guys, it's Animal Fun Fact Corner, and today it's my turn, and it's a bit weird. um, yeah, so because we're talking about pigments, I guess, we decided to talk about Cheetos, like the food, but more specifically, the yellow 5 food dye that is in Cheetos.
Everyone's like
uh,
trying to figure out how this is going to tie to an animal.
yes, correct. So, long story short, scientists had made a translucent mouse. Um, yes, by applying yellow 5 directly on the mouse skin, it actually literally turns the skin clear. And you might wonder, what does a clear mouse look like? Well, worry not, here is a little clip where it's very gnarly, where you can see from the outside in just organs
That
moving about.
is freaky.
Yeah, and it's super interesting. The idea is that please don't do this at home. And obviously, the yellow five that's used, the concentration, the formula is very
Yeah.
different than what you're actually eat. This is why your
Everyone's gonna
Cheeto
start.
fingers.
Yeah, everyone starts exfoliating with Cheetos just to see what would happen.
Yeah, there's a reason why Cheeto fingers aren't clear. It doesn't work like that. But the idea, like the headline, is definitely a little clickbaity, saying Cheetos turn mouse clear. That's not quite the case. But the general idea behind doing this kind of research is actually, if you think about it, pretty cool. From a medical perspective, being able to maybe spot some of the things wrong without going through any sort of invasive procedure is
Yeah.
really practical. This is really early. They just did a proof of concept in mice. This is nowhere near medical application yet, but that's the idea. What I want to share is the concept behind it is actually relatively simple. It's not because yellow 5 is this sketchy thing that is doing anything funky and mutating the mouse. It's actually a concept that Victoria and I had deal with in cosmetics all the time, but that is refractive index.
Mm.
What that means is a refractive index is basically a measure of when light hits it, what angle does it come out of the other side? Well, that's a very weird way of phrasing it. Let me try that.
How does it refract from the surface of skin? Yeah.
Everything out there has a refractive index. And this is actually kind of a side note. This is actually why lotions and creams are white, because the oil, the droplet inside has a different refractive index than the water that's surrounding these droplets. So when light hits it, you can imagine it goes in one angle, goes another angle, and then when you go through a bunch of different angles and whatnot, the effect is it scatters and visually becomes opaque. So the idea is, well, since the water component of an animal versus the lipid components of an animal, say the skin, has very different refractive indexes. What if we make them match? So there's a light hits it the same way and visually it becomes translucent. That's actually it. That's the concept behind it. They did a bunch of very complex calculations on, mouse skin lipid refractive index versus their fluid. How do you compensate that? What is the substance that has that right difference to kind of tip the scale in that right way? And that's how they identified the yellow 5, and it actually worked. So it's actually kind of, for me, I was like, when I first read the headline, like probably a lot of people, I was like, what? What is happening? And then reading about how it's really just applying refractive index, honestly, like very basic level science, in such an intensive way. I was like, oh, that's really nifty.
It's it's honestly genius. Like, I think genius ideas are the most simple, and
Mhm.
it's really great. I really like that Gloria found this article. I also want to highlight that, after the researchers rinsed the dye off with water, the skin of the mice, the natural color just had returned. They had no apparent side effects. I just think it's such a simple solution. And it's
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
way basic, but obviously complicated calculations. So it's such a great study. It's so smart.
Yeah, and I should mention that this is totally a side story, but I actually had a really old project where instead of like the standard white cream, I had to make a clear emulsion, which same thing, you adjust the refractive index by different materials to make sure your oil phase and your water phase match. Then voila, you have a lotion that looks pretty clear. What does that mean to the consumer? Absolutely nothing. But it was something that we could do in the labs, and that was kind of cool.
Science.
Yeah.
That's
But that's
great.
it.
That's
That's the
awesome.
animal fun fact corner.
Hey, whatever they can do to, make animal studies more
Mhm.
humane, just as easy as it can, easier on mice, and what they're, sacrifice for the greater good of science and medicine, all for it. That's awesome.
All right, let's wrap this up with some of our top shopping tips with lip SPFs.
I think the first thing with all sunscreen things is, let's talk about how often you should reapply. First of all, wearability is really tough. Us doing wearability studies here are not actually helpful. We can tell you firsthand that back in our L'Oreal days, Gloria was an intern for Lipstick Lab. we also got to participate in a lot of lipstick studies. We can tell you that wearability is hard enough in makeup. Let's not even
Yeah.
talk about it in sunscreen lip care. So we're just going to tell you that apply often. We, based on if you had a cup of coffee, you had lunch, you have wiped your, dabbed at your lips, trying to just adjust, we would say just reapply because, yeah, there's no other way to ensure you're getting that protection otherwise.
Yeah, your lips could just go through a lot by nature, and it is what it is. So I will say, as I was testing all this category, it really feels like none of the skin learnings applied because how you feel about it, how this
Yeah,
product interacts with you, just so different.
totally.
So when I yeah, when we first started doing the test, I know that it's not gonna last 2 hours. It just isn't. But I kind of want to see the film should still be robust, and it ends up being a little floofy. So first of all, nothing is gonna last through eating. It just isn't. It
Yeah.
food your food. Even if you like pucker your lips to the most and just insert food right in the middle, it's gonna come off. And even if it
Yeah.
doesn't come off with eating, with that grease on your mouth when you pat down or wipe your mouth afterwards, it gone. You have to reapply. Water, drinking water, natural talking, the friction, this and that, all of this contribute to taking off the lipstick over the lip balm over time. I will say I can't remember. This was one of the older ones that we tested last year or maybe the year before. I tested a product, and as I was drinking water, I checked on it after drinking water and just working for maybe 15 minutes, and you can already see feathering from the SPF line.
Mm,
That to me is too not robust of a product, but otherwise, like honestly, as long as it holds up reasonable, by reasonable I mean through drinking, through doing that much for at least half an hour, it's like okay, and you just have to reapply it.
yeah. And I think, like, for anybody who's a bit of a lipstick junkie, you probably actually know what to look for. It's kind of similar, right? You just like Laura mentioned, feathering, bleeding, you can feel it like just not really stay within the lines of your lip
Mhm.
border. You can feel like even just looking at some of the pigment, if you're using any pigmented tinted sticks, you can see that uneven coverage. Those are all indicators that you should reapply, or maybe it's not the right one for you. So, yeah, we should talk about factors of what to look for while you are testing all of these. And while we're on the subject, let's talk about taste.
It shouldn't taste bad. And some of them taste really garbage, as we already covered. I should mention that taste is also one of the main reasons why, compared to skin, both of us are like mineral,
Mm,
surprisingly pleasant.
yeah. And I was going to say, like, I'm willing to use a lower SPF to taste less.
Yeah,
So,
it really, yeah, for those of you who haven't tasted sunscreen, like it really isn't great. And when your waters are tasting like octocrylene, it's you're not gonna want to reapply. So that's taste, and it can be a little subjective. We might get some comments that's like, "What are you talking about? Some bump tastes great," and that's good for you. It is very subjective what level of taste you can tolerate, but
yeah, for sure.
yeah. Mm,
We
go ahead.
should talk about some of the tinteds. Same as tinted sunscreens, the level of tint could probably drive your shopping purchase as well.
Mhm.
There are some that are very sheer, there are some that are a lot more tinted. We found that the minerals in general tend to have just a heavier coat,
Mhm.
but that's definitely something to consider. Also, because I mean, you should see my table right now, but just the general shades. And I also just came back from Asia, but of lip
Ugh.
colors that I own, something to think about as well.
So on the topic of tinted, I do think my personal preference and recommendation is still to have I would recommend having two lip SPFs you like in your arsenal, one tinted,
Mm,
one non-tinted. A lot of
mm,
the tinted ones they might look and feel pretty good on, and it replaces on a daily, like average day, in my just a regular day routine, not going out or anything like that. I find that the tinted versions I feel good enough about it to replace, say, a lipstick. But even the ones that's really well done, honestly, most of the ones we test are pretty good. They look good on. I don't love reapplying them directly. There's something
Mm,
about putting pigment film on pigment film that just feels, it doesn't, it just, I haven't felt like it looks too good. So,
mm. It's so funny because like I think, and it could be because like you also have a dry skin tendency. So
yes.
like, you want to make sure that it's like, sometimes if you have like lip skin that's like peeling, it just won't sit as well with an extra coat.
It's
Um,
100% true. Well, you can literally see the pigment clinging for dear life on your cracked skin. It's not a good look.
clinging is so correct. It's just like this chunk that's just there being like, hello, hanging out. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely think that's a really good point. And then that leads us to dryness. I have to mention, I don't have the same severity of lip dryness as Gloria, but after trying all of these, I can definitely tell you, I too also feel like my lip hydration is not so good now. And I did have this like kind of like tinfoil hat theory that like SPFs like in a way just make you continue to like use lip balm, like because after using an SPF you feel the need to put on a night balm, a lip balm at night, only to like put on lip SPF again. It's just the cyclical cycle that you can't break. So that was the one thing where I'm like, god, like it's just I don't know if they're we'll be able to find, or maybe the next project we'll do is to find a more like hydrating lip SPF, but I do think that's definitely a trait of general formulas in this category.
Yeah, and so those are some of the factors we'll keep in mind. You'll notice that we didn't mention anything about SPF level.
Mm,
On the market, you'll find most balms are between 15 to 30.
yeah.
Either one's okay. Like, whatever will encourage you to apply is good, especially because the starting point is, to be honest, a lot of people don't use a lip SPF even when going on the sun. SPF 50, wholly unnecessary. We only tested the one product and it just did taste. so,
I was, and
yeah.
that's such a good point to bring up, Gloria, because I was going to tell you, while I was in Asia, I did take a look at their SPF lip products. I think
Mhm.
they're a lot more sensitive to taste because you'll find ones that are like SPF of 5, like it's
Oh, yeah, yeah.
very low. So like those guys don't want to taste any sunscreen.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, like any 5, I would say feels real low, but
Yeah.
15 is more, it's definitely fine, especially if you
Yeah.
like enough to reapply.
Yeah.
So, oh, and the last factor to consider is definitely price point. I'm
Mm,
someone that's guilty of having one too many lip products and I rarely finish them. But I will say lip balms that I like, I do go through fairly quickly. And lip SPF is not something that you want to have sitting around for forever in a hot car either.
mm.
So price point comes into play here. You don't want to feel like, oh, I want to conserve this product and make it last until my granddaughter's wedding or something 50 years from now.
Please don't. No. Who makes that their goal?
I say that because I found a Carmex like tube, a lip SPF tube in my car recently, and I'm like, I think I bought this before COVID.
Oh my god. It's
everyone
true
has
though.
everyone has one that's tucked away. Then you
Yep.
find you're like,
Yep.
the year was 2015.
So I don't know if you have this issue, Gloria, but the bite lipsticks I still have. And
Me
those guys
too.
have not been around for a very long time now.
Their diameter has shrunken at least 30%.
I'm looking a bit sad. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, those are some of the criteria we would recommend keeping in mind. They're all subjective, but they're all important. But what that means to you is up to your own personal interpretation and the condition of your lips. And last but not least, before we wrap this episode off, of all the products we tested, Victoria, I think it's actually a great barrage of products to play Kill Mary F.
Mm.
Mm. I think we know who we're gonna kill. I think we both know who we're gonna kill.
um yeah, but which of the ones we want to kill specifically? Okay. I think the one I would definitely kill is the non-tinted sun bum version of SPF
Uh-huh.
30, just because of level of taste. It didn't glide well. There's nothing about this that I would want to continue using. So that would be my choice for kill.
I would kill the Hello Sunday SPF 50. Even though it didn't taste as bad as Sun Balm, it is a lot more expensive than the Sun Balm.
I see. That's also fair. Yes, that's a good one too. There's definitely a few, but I just didn't like. Again, you guys know me now. I don't really like the sticks, so it just doesn't glide well, and it tastes. Yeah. So, in terms of who would you F with, Gloria?
I would F with. I would F with the Tatcha Kissu. Nice formula, nice color. You're $34. I can't see you often. This is not a long-term relationship. You make me feel pretty for the couple hours, and that's what matters here.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I don't think it's this is a price point thing for me. So I'm like, I don't think I want to F with Tatcha because in some ways, my budget doesn't want to allow me to F with Tatcha.
It's very fair.
Let me think. This is tough. I would actually F with a lot of these. I'm not gonna lie. So I think one that I find myself, I wouldn't, I think, okay, I choose this because I know which one I would marry. Okay, but I would F with the K-Skin Isle Lip Balm. So I think that one, if there was a chemical of these that I would choose, I like the sheerness of it. I like that it lasts on my skin. I'm gonna keep coming back for a good F. So that's that one.
I will say that line, like, I will F with a lot of these is actually how most of us secretly have a giant drawer of just lip stuff. Yes, right? Exactly. It's a mood thing. It's a happiness factor.
It is a happiness factor, 100%.
So who would you marry?
I'd marry the E.L.F. Boss Gloss, whatever name, Sun Boss Gloss, because I find it to be, because I F with a lot of the NYX Butter Gloss, and I do find this a pretty nice comparison. So I think that one I could marry also because it comes in quite a few shades as well, and it's not that the investment of me owning several shades I do not mind, because I do feel like Tinted, you're going to want to own different shades, and the cost of that
100%
can definitely accumulate pretty quickly. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to marry Aquaphor. It's so bored. I feel like this.
You married, but then you sighed. You were like, "I'm gonna have to marry." Like it's like you're resigned to you marry Gloria.
I feel like this is definitely a type of marriage. It does the job. When you look at it, you feel nothing. But you're like, you are reliable, and I can count on you day in, day out. You're also not as cheap as a Blistex, which, to be honest, I do like the Blistex a lot. It is really, really cheap, but like, I feel like I'm at a point in my life where I don't have to go for the dollar store husbands anymore, so I can marry someone just a little nicer.
I feel like people listening will hear us talk about this, and they'll be like, that is a very specific experience. Are you guys okay?
These people just got married relatively recently. Oh my God.
Don't read into it too much, guys. We just, but yeah, hopefully this was enjoyable for you guys. And it was helpful. And it's a reminder that our lips need care. But all in all, Gloria, where can they find us?
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram at chemistconfessions.com. I don't know why I'm starting the order weird this time. Let me start over.
I like how you said chemistconfessions.com. Like the dots everywhere.
So wrong on multiple levels. You can find us on our website at chemistconfessions.com. You can write to us at info@chemistconfessions.com. And DM us on Instagram at chemist.confessions. This is where we pull you guys about a lot of your thoughts and feelings on skincare, which shape these episodes. Last but not least, you can comment below if you watch on YouTube. Let us know your favorite lip SPF product. My lip has been peeling so much, I can't test another one. I know there's a lot more out there, so let us know your thoughts.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.